Situated in the Appalachian Mountains, approximately 200 miles west of Washington, D.C., and in the heart of the National Radio Quiet Zone, is the town of Cass, West Virginia. A small town with a population of only 38 people, the old wooden company houses sit. The quiet streets well kept and clean. The houses restored. The surrounding nature pristine. The old company store rejuvenated. The old railroad more alive than ever. This little town sees thousands of tourists each year, all coming for the unique appeal of the Cass Scenic Railroad, a railroad home not only to splendid views and a rich history of timbering, but also to the unique geared steam engines that tackle the grades of this old logging railroad. Engines that look like no other. Engines that can do what no other locomotive could handle. The Cass Scenic Railroad has been an icon of steam railroading for decades, but for those interested in geared steam power, it is more than an icon. It is the mecca. The Cass Scenic Railroad is home to the largest collection of Shay locomotives, the most common and widely used form of geared steam. And Cass is home to the oldest operating Shay, the largest surviving Shay, and the most operational Shays. Each year, the railroad fires up every steam locomotive currently in operating condition for a celebration of steam railroading and of West Virginia during the annual West Virginia Day. Hundreds line up to see the geared wonders march down the track alongside the parking lot of the Cass Scenic Railroad. These unique locomotives were designed to handle steep grades, sharp curves, and poor track conditions, all elements commonly found in logging railroading. The line in Cass that these engines traverse today is an old logging line itself, built at the turn of the century, along with the namesake town. Today, tourists, not lumber, keep the lights on. And it is the journey on this treacherously steep railroad, with engines so uniquely designed for this task, that brings thousands to this remote town. The journey to Bald Knob.
On the road, headed back to New Orleans, driving in the country past old-timey scenes. Big birds were singing in the tall willow trees. Mighty fine, mighty fine. 3 words written on.
The 11-mile journey, which begins at Cass, ascends the old logging line of the West Virginia Pulp and Paper Company, passing the ruins of the old mill as the train leaves Cass. The old structure burned twice after closing. Now the ruins remain as a reminder of a bygone era and history not forgotten. Immediately after passing the mill, the train passes through the Cass yard, home of the locomotive shops, where the railroad's steam engines receive service and repairs. The crews of the Cass shops must fabricate new parts on their own, as there is no warehouse to order replacement components for a 1900 Shay locomotive. Leaving the town and the rail yard behind, the line begins venturing off into the woods, following Leatherbark Creek. grade gets steeper as the climb up Back Allegheny Mountain begins, and the might of the Shays is put to the test. In order to traverse the steep mountainsides, the railroad uses a pair of switchbacks, sections of railroad where the track doubles back on itself via a switch, and the train must stop in reverse direction to continue onwards up the grade. For a short time, the engine will pull our train up grade until the next switchback, where direction will be reversed once again, and the locomotive will push the train the rest of the way to Bald Knob. At the upper switchback, one train meets another. The 11 a.m. train to Whitaker, pulled by Shay number 6, on its way back down the mountain. Once the Whitaker train has cleared the switch, our train resumes its journey, with Shay 11 pushing the train once more.
So far coming up the mountain, we've been averaging about a 5% grade. As we leave the upper switchback and head up towards Bald Knob, we're going to be traveling up a 9% grade. This means the track will be going up 9 feet in elevation for every 100 feet it travels forward. This is considered very steep for any railroad, but just type of job our geared logging locomotives were built for. Our engineer today is Noah, and our fireman is Brown. The fireman will be working especially hard in this stretch, trying to keep steam up. More modern steam engines might have an automatic stoker that feeds the coal into the firebox. We like to do things the old-fashioned way. A cold steam locomotive will consume about 4 tons of coal on this excursion to Bald Knob and back. Brown will have to shovel all that coal by himself, one shovelful at a time. By the time we get off work, he won't need to hit the gym for a workout. He'll done had his for the day.
The railroad operates with the locomotives on the downhill end of the train for the bulk of the trip, in order to prevent the possibility of a runaway car. Even if the risk is low, it is a safety measure taken to ensure that this small risk is still avoided. Up here, the railroad passes several overlooks of the valley below, the sights that draw in so many of the railroad's patrons.
Soft and close-grained. This made it ideally suited to the types of paper-making processes that were used in the early 20th century. For the same reason, it is also good for building airplanes and other things that needed a light, sturdy frame. In fact, it was so ideal that the Wright brothers ordered a load of red spruce from the Cass Mill in 1904 to go into their number 3 experimental flyer, which was the one that got the most flight time. A letter from the 2 brothers documenting the sale of this lumber still exists in our archives today. The cost was $50 for 500 feet. And we are now passing a location that's going to be called Old Spruce. Over to your left, the original main line of the West Virginia Pulp and Paper Company track branched off and extended up toward a town called Spruce. And throughout the mountains of the north and south along the Chambersburg, paper company sold the track past Spruce to the Western Maryland Railroad so they could haul coal out of the next valley.
As the train nears the summit, the weather begins to change. temperatures plummet, and the plant life changes, with spruce trees becoming more and more dominant as we ascend the mountain. The train stops briefly at a location known as Oats Run to allow our locomotive to take on water. The climb up the mountain is hard work for the steam engines, which require a lot of water to produce steam. Once the tender tank is topped off, the final push is on for the last few miles to Bald Knob. As our train arrives at Bald Knob, the temperatures have dropped over 20 degrees from our starting point in Cass. Snowfall has been observed here in every month of the year except July. The mountaintop touching the clouds, the thin air, the change in plant life and wildlife. The town of Cass, 2,292 feet below us. We are, figuratively, on top of the world.
BMG.
That's a perfect size for Curtis, too. Turn right to the left of it. You still got that asshole. Oh, wow. Yeah, it is. The observatory. Oh, that's great. That looks like a Viking setup.
As the area recovers from the years of timbering, eventually the red spruce trees, which brought the loggers to this area, will become dominant here once again at this high elevation. The view from the overlook spans into Virginia. The large white satellite disk a few thousand feet below, the largest movable structure in the world, is the Robert C. Byrd Green Bank Telescope, a radio telescope peering deep into the mysteries of space, and the reason for the National Radio Quiet Zone surrounding Cass. The lack of cell service makes the journey to the top of Bald Knob all the more immersive. After our short visit to Bald Knob, our train begins the 11-mile downhill trek back to Cass. Due to the steep grade and the length of the grades, the railroad uses brakemen who operate the handbrakes on the cars, rather than relying on the train's air brakes powered by the locomotive. The length of the grades requires the air brakes to be cycled, which results in periods of time where the air brake system is released and must remain released in order to charge again. The train stops at Whitaker Station for another short break, allowing the passengers to stretch their legs and explore the old logging equipment preserved at the site. With brakes squealing, the train resumes the downhill journey, traversing the switchbacks once again, returning 1 mile at a time to the lower elevations. A blast from the whistle of Shay number 11 signals our return to the Cass yard, and the final stage of this incredible journey that no fan of steam power, railroading, or history will soon forget.